I never imagined the first crack in my son's future would begin with a cheerful phone call on an ordinary Wednesday morning. I was in my office at the Halifax Harbourfront, reviewing performance reports for a client's pension fund. The Atlantic wind rattled the window beside my desk, and the faint foghorns drifted in from the bay. My schedule was packed, 3 meetings back-to-back, lunch at my desk, and a video call with our Vancouver branch in the afternoon. Nothing about the day suggested disaster, until my phone lit up with a name that almost never appeared during working hours. Liam. My son rarely called me during the day. Texting was more his language. Seeing his name made me sit up straighter. Are you free for lunch? His voice was bright, almost too bright. I hadn't heard that almost bubbling excitement since he was 14 and won a regional robotics competition. For you, always, I said. Is everything all right? Better than all right. Meet me at Port Saint Bistro around 12:45. Half an hour later, I was sitting in a cozy corner booth overlooking the water. The restaurant was quiet. Midweek lunches usually were. Through the window, I saw him approaching, half jogging, half floating down the boardwalk, like someone walking on good news. Liam had turned 27 just 2 months earlier. Software engineer, rising star at a cybersecurity startup, new apartment in Clayton Park, and a circle of friends who adored him. He had always been focused, almost to a fault, coding late into the night, reading research papers for fun, rarely dating longer than a month or two. So when he slid into the booth across from me, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, I had no idea the bomb he was about to drop. Mom, he said, unable to hold it in any longer. I'm getting married. I stared. Not even a sip of my iced tea could save me from choking on my surprise. To who? He grinned and pulled out his phone, flipping the screen toward me. Her name is Nova Lark. We've been together for, 3 months. 3 months. Barely more than a season. The photo showed a striking woman around his age, sharp features softened by a wide smile, long copper hair spilling over a tailored blazer. They stood on a rooftop bar I didn't recognize, Halifax skyline behind them, sunset painting the clouds pink. Nova's hand rested on his chest with a kind of ownership that made my stomach tighten. She's incredible, Liam said. Runs her own consulting firm, strategic branding, market expansion, that sort of thing. She's ambitious, driven. She gets me. His excitement was genuine. That much I could feel. But something in Nova's pose in that photo, the way she positioned herself toward the camera, the way Liam leaned into her, rather than the other way around, pricked at the back of my mind. I'd love to meet her, I said carefully. He beamed. Saturday, dinner at your place. She wants to make a good impression. That phrasing, the need to make a good impression, told me Nova was assessing me just as much as I would be assessing her. When he left for work, I stayed in that booth a long time, replaying his words, studying the single photo he'd shown me, excited, engaged, 3 months. Something wasn't right, but I had no idea how wrong things were going to get. Because that Saturday night, when Nova finally walked through my front door, I realized the woman my son planned to marry wasn't just ambitious. She was calculating. And she had already chosen her first target. By Saturday evening, I had scrubbed every inch of my kitchen twice, rearranged the dining table 3 different ways, and questioned every decision I'd made in the menu. It wasn't nerves. Not exactly. It was the lingering unease I'd been trying to smother since that lunch with Liam. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. My son was grown, successful, smart. He'd built encryption systems for national clients. Surely, he could tell when someone wasn't what they seemed, but mothers aren't built to ignore instincts, no matter how grown our children become. At Dr. Armitage, she said, offering a hand before I could introduce myself. Just Mara is fine, I replied. Her handshake was firm, too firm, a practiced dominance. Liam stepped in behind her, glowing with pride, completely unaware of the subtle territorial signal she'd just sent. Mom, doesn't she look amazing? I smiled, though something cold rippled beneath my ribs. She looks very put together. Nova's gaze swept across my home with quick, calculating interest. Not appreciation, assessment. She paused on the framed photo of Liam at his university graduation, then on the antique nautical compass my father had passed down to me. Not a flicker of genuine curiosity, just inventory. Dinner began pleasantly enough. Nova talked about her consulting firm, Lark Strategies, focused on high-level brand realignment and executive reputation sculpting. A mouthful of words that sounded like they belonged in a pitch meeting rather than a family dinner. But I listened politely, nodding where appropriate. She had an answer for everything, a polished, preloaded answer. When the conversation shifted to Liam's work, she practically glowed, not with admiration, but with opportunity. "He's brilliant," she said. "With the right platform, he could easily transition into senior leadership roles within a year." Liam blushed, brushing it off. "She exaggerates." "No," she said, placing a hand on his forearm. "You underestimate yourself. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here." The phrasing touched something raw in me. Partnerships are supposed to be mutual, not strategic missions. When I excused myself to bring out dessert, I overheard a fragment of conversation from the dining room. "Your mom is sharp," Nova said. "I can see where you get your instincts, but she'll need to understand our goals." Our goals? My jaw tightened. They'd known each other for 3 months. What goals required my understanding? I returned with the lemon torte, and Nova's expression snapped into a practiced warmth, as if someone had flipped a switch behind her eyes. "Mara," she said sweetly, "I'd love to know more about your investment background. Liam told me you manage large accounts. I imagine you've seen all kinds of financial opportunities." It wasn't interest. It was probing. I gave her a polite, neutral reply. "Over the years, yes." Her smile sharpened. "Maybe we can discuss a few things privately sometime. I value seasoned perspectives." Not once did she mention her own family, her childhood, her friends, her likes or dislikes. Nothing personal, nothing soft. It was like dining with a resume come to life. By the time they left, I was certain of only one thing. Whatever Nova wanted, it wasn't my son. But I didn't realize how deep Nova's game ran until Monday morning, when the background check I never intended to run revealed a secret she'd spent years burying. I hadn't planned on digging into Nova's past. Truly, I hadn't. I've spent my entire career advocating caution in personal finance, yet I'd promised myself, sternly, that I would not become the meddling mother who sabotages her adult son's relationships. But Sunday night, long after Liam and Nova had left, I found myself replaying every moment of that dinner. Her rehearsed answers, her territorial air, the way she studied my home like a blueprint. And the final nudge came from something so small I almost dismissed it. She never once asked Liam a question about himself. People in love ask questions. They're curious. They want to understand every corner of the person they choose. Nova wasn't curious. She was calculating. Still, I resisted the urge to pry. But by Monday morning, an email from a former classmate, now working in corporate intelligence, landed in my inbox. Unprompted. Almost eerie timing. "Saw your son's engagement post online. Congratulations. Just a heads up, if he's marrying someone involved in Lark Strategies, tell him to be careful. We had a client issue with them last year. Something didn't add up." My stomach dropped. That was all it took. By lunchtime, I'd ask my assistant to cancel my next meeting. I closed my office door, logged into my private workstation, and ran the most basic background check a financial firm is allowed to conduct without pause. What I found wasn't illegal, but it was strange, very strange. For one, there was no official record of Lark Strategies before 2 years ago. Not a business license, not a tax filing, nothing. And Nova Lark, supposedly an established consultant, had social media accounts that looked brand new. Photos, too polished. Posts, too curated. No casual snapshots, no old friends tagging her. Her entire online presence read like a carefully assembled public persona. But the deeper I dug, the more troubling it became. Her legal name wasn't Nova Lark. It was November Larson, changed only 8 months earlier. That alone wasn't damning. People change names all the time. But when I found records from her earlier career, under her old name, the story took a darker turn. There were 3 lawsuits filed against a November Larson Consulting, all quietly settled, but the allegations: exploiting clients financially, misrepresenting her qualifications, manipulating business partners into signing strategic contracts. that siphoned funds. Nothing criminal, nothing that stuck, but a pattern unmistakably similar to what she had subtly hinted at over dinner. Executive reputation sculpting, brand realignment, strategic partnerships, a pattern of creating aspirations, then monetizing them until the client collapsed. And then there was the last part, a sealed police record, details unavailable, but listed as a domestic fraud complaint filed by a former fiancé. My hands went cold around my coffee cup. I closed everything, locked my screen, and forced myself to breathe. This wasn't just a woman with ambition. This was someone who reinvented herself strategically, repeatedly, always leaving a trail of misunderstandings behind her. When Liam called later that afternoon, sounding thrilled about a wedding venue Nova wanted him to tour, I nearly told him everything, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure. Concrete. Undeniable. I needed proof so solid that even Nova's silver tongue couldn't twist it. So instead, I said, "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart, but can we talk tonight? Something important came up." He agreed instantly, cheerful as ever, completely unaware of the storm forming around him. As I ended the call, I stared out at the graying Halifax harbor and felt the dread settle deep in my bones. Nova wasn't just hiding something, she was preparing something. And the next morning, when I finally confronted her past head-on, I learned that Nova hadn't just reinvented herself. She'd perfected the art of erasing the people she left behind. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that sealed police record. Those lawsuits, the eerie clean slate Nova had constructed like a digital chrysalis. By sunrise, I'd made coffee strong enough to wake the dead and sat at my dining table with my laptop, ready to dig deeper. Not out of paranoia, but out of necessity. People don't reinvent themselves that thoroughly unless they're hiding something big. By 9 a.m., I was on a video call with Hannah Porter, the corporate intelligence analyst who had sent the email about Lark Strategies. I trusted Hannah. She'd helped our firm identify fraudulent partners before. "All right, Mara," she began, adjusting her headset. "Tell me everything you've seen." I summarized the lawsuits, the name change, the suspiciously polished online presence. Hannah's face darkened with each detail. "That matches what we saw," she said. "Surface-level legitimacy, but nothing underneath. All facade." She forwarded me a file, one her firm had gathered during a prior due diligence probe. Most of it I'd already discovered, but one detail chilled me. A missing person report filed 4 years ago, filed against her. The complainant was listed as Elias H. Rowan, fiancé. The report was withdrawn 2 weeks later with a note that said, "She resurfaced unharmed. No further action requested." But there was no explanation, no follow-up, no clarification of where she had gone. "She disappeared?" I whispered. "For 2 weeks, Hannah replied. Told authorities she needed space due to emotional instability in the relationship. But Elias refused to comment further. I rubbed my temples, trying to process it. "Do you know what happened to him?" "Yes," Hannah said grimly. 6 months after she resurfaced, he filed for bankruptcy. His family blocked any requests for statements. It was like he'd been hollowed out. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Women vanished to escape abusers. But this felt inverted. Like she was the storm that blew into people's lives, stripped them of stability, and drifted on before anyone could pin her down. "Is there any chance she's changed?" I asked softly. Hannah hesitated. People change their clothes, their hair, their surroundings. But patterns like hers, they evolve, sure, but they don't disappear. My fear for Liam sharpened into something fierce and urgent. After the call ended, I spent an hour pacing my living room before deciding I needed to confront Nova directly. No accusations, no anger, just a conversation to test her reaction. So I texted her, "Would you be available to meet privately? I'd love to get to know you better." 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Nova, of course. I was hoping you'd ask. Coffee at the Wren House? 3 p.m. The Wren House was a quaint cafe near the Botanical Gardens. Public, neutral, safe. Good. If she sensed anything, she wouldn't risk a scene. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing questions, practicing steady tones, controlling my breathing. I would approach this like any client I suspected of financial misconduct. Gently, cautiously, but with precision. At 2:58 p.m., I stepped into the cafe. Nova was already there, sitting by the window, perfectly composed, sipping herbal tea like a woman without a single secret in the world. She smiled when she saw me, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. I sat across from her, heart pounding, and opened my mouth to begin. What I asked her was simple. What she answered was rehearsed. But the way she reacted, cold, sharp, calculated, revealed a truth I had only begun to understand. Nova wasn't threatened by my questions. She was amused. Nova didn't rise when I approached the table. She simply lifted her gaze, eyes a clear, calculating blue, and offered that polished smile she wielded like a signature. "Mara," she said warmly, though the warmth was imitation at best. "I'm glad you reached out. Getting to know Liam's family is important to me." I sat, folding my hands neatly on the table to hide the tremor running through them. "Of course, I feel the same." The server brought my coffee. I thanked her, took a slow sip, and then looked directly at Nova. I wanted to talk, woman to woman. Her eyebrows arched slightly. "That sounds serious." "It is." I leaned forward just enough to convey sincerity, not accusation. "Your relationship with Liam is moving fast. I just want to make sure you're both ready." Nova tilted her head, studying me like a professor, assessing a student's essay. "I appreciate your concern, but Liam and I are aligned in ways you might not understand yet." Aligned. I'd heard CEOs use that word when preparing to merge companies, not when preparing to merge lives. I kept my voice soft. "What drew you to him?" Nova didn't hesitate. "Potential." A single word. Crisp, precise, chilling. "Potential?" I echoed. She smiled again, but this one was thinner, like a crack in porcelain. "Your son is brilliant, Mara, but brilliance without direction is wasted. I provide direction, structure, vision. Vision for what? His future." Her tone sharpened, turning oddly possessive. "With my guidance, he'll achieve far more than he ever imagined." A cold slither of fear crawled down my spine. "And what does he provide you?" Her eyes flashed, just briefly. Annoyance? Amusement? It was hard to tell. "Stability," she replied. "Trust. A partner who listens." "Listens?" I repeated. "To me," she clarified. "Fully." That was when the danger crystallized. Nova didn't want a partner. She wanted an audience. I gathered my courage. "I've come across some concerning information about your consulting work. Most people, even guilty ones, react visibly to a statement like that. Defensiveness, fear, anger, something." Nova didn't flinch. She simply leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs in a slow, deliberate motion. "I wondered when you'd bring that up," she said casually. My pulse thundered. "You expected me to?" "Of course." She lifted her teacup, sipping with annoyed elegance. "You're cautious, intelligent. Liam warned me you might pry." "He warned her?" "I haven't pried," I said carefully. "I've just looked into me," she finished. "Checked my business filings, my legal history, my name change." "Yes, I know." My breath froze. "How could you possibly?" Her smile widened, shark-like. "I keep track of who searches my name. Cybersecurity is easier than you think, Mara, especially when one knows where to look." I swallowed. Hard. Nova set down her cup and leaned forward, mirroring my earlier posture. "Let me be clear. Whatever you think you found, you don't have the full story." "Then tell me the full story," I challenged softly. She laughed, a quiet, brittle sound. "Why would I do that? You've already decided who I am. I want to understand you." "No," she said, her voice dropping into something low and intimate. "You want to protect Liam." "Of course, and that's admirable." Her gaze sharpened to a predatory sliver. "But let me give you some advice." She paused, letting the air between us tighten. "Do not get in the way of my life with your son." It wasn't said with anger. It was said with certainty, as if she were warning me gently, like someone giving directions away from a cliff's edge. But I'd seen cliffs before, and I knew what it meant when someone started marking the boundaries. I kept my voice steady. "What happens if I do?" Nova's smile collapsed into something honest at last. "Then I'll remove the obstacle, efficiently." I left that cafe shaken but determined, and that night, when Liam called me in tears, I realized Nova's warning wasn't a threat for the future. It was already in motion. I replayed Nova's words all the way home. "I'll remove the obstacle, efficiently." Anyone else might have brushed it off as bravado, but not me. There was no tremor in her voice, no heat, no emotion, just a promise delivered with the same tone someone might use when stating the time. But even then, even after everything I had uncovered, I wasn't prepared for how quickly she would act. It began that same evening. I had barely hung up my coat when my phone rang. Liam's name lit up the screen. Relief washed over me. Maybe he was calling to discuss something harmless and normal, a break in the tension coiling in my chest. But when I answered, his voice was raw. "Mom, did you really say that to her?" My stomach twisted. "Say what, sweetheart?" "She told me you accused her of being dangerous, that you said she was manipulating me." My breath caught. "I never said anything like that." Silence, thick, heavy. Then a shaky inhale from my son. "She said she tried to explain her past to you, that she was honest, vulnerable, and you shut her down, that you threatened to expose her private history." I closed my eyes. Nova hadn't waited hours. She had twisted the knife immediately. "Liam," I said gently, "I only asked questions. I'm trying to understand her. She said you interrogated her." His voice cracked. "That you treated her like a criminal." That was exactly what Nova wanted him to feel. Protective, cornered, loyal to her over everyone else. "Sweetheart," I tried again. "I had concerns." "About what?" he snapped, uncharacteristically sharp. "Her ambition, her job, the fact that she wants to help me grow." It felt like the air was draining from my lungs. "This isn't like you," I whispered. "This anger. This defend. It's not who you are." "She said you'd say that," he murmured. "That you'd claim she was changing me." Of course she did. This was the blueprint of emotional isolation. Preempt the loved one's arguments, plant seeds of doubt, and frame yourself as the misunderstood victim. I forced calm. "Liam, she changed her name 8 months ago. She's been sued 3 times by former clients. She has a sealed police record. These are facts. I don't care about her past," he snapped. "She told me she made mistakes. She was in abusive relationships. People wanted to control her. They twisted her reputation." I nearly dropped the phone. She had slipped everything, made herself the hunted instead of the hunter. "Please, Liam," I whispered. "You need to slow down. Think. You just met her. We're getting married," he shot back. His breath hitched. "I thought you'd trust my judgment." "I do," I said, "which is why I know you would never rush into something this serious unless—" "Unless what?" he demanded. I swallowed. "Unless someone was pushing you." There it was, the match tossed into gasoline. Liam's voice turned cold. "Nova was right. You're trying to sabotage this." "Liam, I don't want to talk for a while. I need space." The call ended. Just like that. I stood in my hallway, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing but my own pulse hammering through the silence. My son, my thoughtful, logical, gentle son, had snapped at me for the first time in his life. Nova's influence wasn't subtle anymore. She was driving a wedge, and she was doing it expertly. And that was when the true dread hit me. If this was how fast she could fracture our relationship in a single day, what would she accomplish with another week? But the real blow came the next morning, when a stranger knocked on my office door with a story about Nova that made everything I'd discovered so far look insignificant. The next morning, I arrived at my office early, partly because I couldn't sleep, and partly because I needed the structured quiet of work to keep my mind from spiraling. I tried to focus on reviewing a client's retirement portfolio, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Liam's voice the night before. Tight, defensive, changed. At 9:12 a.m., my assistant tapped my door. "Dr. Armitage, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent." I frowned. "A client?" "No, she wouldn't give her name." My stomach tightened. "Send her in." The woman who stepped inside looked to be in her late 40s. Well-dressed, calm posture, but her eyes held the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work or parenting or grief. It comes from war. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly, closing the door behind her. "Of course," I replied. "How can I help?" She inhaled shakily, then extended a hand. "My name is Tara Calloway. You don't know me, but I know Nova." The room seemed to tilt. I gestured for her to sit. She did, clasping her hands tightly in her lap, as if gripping them were the only thing tethering her to composure. "I heard through a mutual contact," she said, "that your son is engaged to her." My pulse pounded. Yes, Tara nodded slowly, sympathy washing across her face. Then you need to hear this. And you need to hear it now. She opened her purse and placed a small folder on my desk. The edges were worn, as if handled too many times. 3 years ago, Tara began. My brother, Caleb, was in a serious relationship with her. A flicker of dread crawled up my spine. Was? Tara's voice wavered. He didn't survive it. The world seemed to freeze around me. She continued. When he met her, she was still November Lawson then. He was happy, confident, thriving. But she dismantled him piece by piece. Not violently, not obviously, subtly. How, I whispered. She convinced him he was extraordinary, and that only she recognized it. She convinced him his family was holding him back, that his friends were jealous. Tara swallowed hard. And then she began introducing opportunities. Business ventures, consultancy partnerships, financial promises. My stomach twisted into a knot. Did he invest all of his savings? Tara's eyes glistened. She pushed and pushed until he believed he couldn't succeed without her. By the time he realized the contracts she had him sign were fraudulent or predatory, he'd lost nearly everything. His job, his apartment, his confidence. She pulled a photograph from the folder. A young man, handsome, bright-eyed, stood smiling at a family barbecue. He wasn't emotionally fragile, Tara said, but she made him that way. When he tried to leave her, she threatened to expose private things he'd confided in her. She isolated him completely. I felt physically sick. What happened to him? I asked, though I already feared the answer. Tara met my gaze, her expression hollow with grief. He took his own life. The breath punched out of me. She showed up at his funeral, Tara said quietly. Cried, hugged people, told everyone she tried to save him. And within a month, she disappeared, changed her name, started over. A cold wave washed over me. You're not the first, Mother, Tara whispered. You won't be the last. She picks ambitious, empathetic men, ones with dreams, ones she can mold, ones who want to be believed in. My hands trembled against my desk. Tara leaned forward. Your son is in danger, not of physical harm, of psychological destruction. Nova consumes people from the inside out, and by the time they notice, they no longer think they deserve better. I exhaled shakily. I've tried talking to him. She's already twisting his perception. I know, Tara said, but you cannot give up. You must be steady, present, predictable. She isolates her partners by turning chaos into the only thing that feels stable. I nodded, absorbing every word. Then, Tara placed one last document on the desk, a restraining order, filed by Caleb, against Nova. My blood turned cold. She's dangerous, Tara said softly, and she's faster than you think. I thought Tara's warning was the lowest point, until I received a call later that afternoon, informing me that Nova had taken her manipulation one step further. This time, directly targeting my career. I sat at my desk long after Tara left, staring at the restraining order she'd placed in my hands, filed by a dead man, against the woman my son intended to marry. Every instinct in me wanted to run to Liam's apartment, drag him into my car, and drive as far from Nova as humanly possible. But Tara's warning echoed in my head. You cannot give up. You must be steady, present, predictable, stable, a constant anchor. While Nova calculated every ripple meant to separate him from me, I thought I had braced myself for the next blow. I hadn't. At 3:40 p.m., just as I was preparing to leave for a meeting, my intercom buzzed. Dr. Armitage, my assistant said, her voice tight. You have a call from the Ethics Compliance Board. My heart stopped. They did not call casually. Put them through, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. A clipped male voice came on the line. Dr. Mara Armitage, this is Chairperson Leland from the Provincial Ethics Committee. We've received an anonymous report regarding potential misconduct within your practice. Misconduct. The room began to spin. What misconduct? I asked carefully. A claim has been made, he continued, that you've been using clients' private financial data for personal leverage, specifically manipulating investment recommendations to benefit family members. My breath caught. That is absolutely untrue. We're not making any assessments yet, he said formally, but we are legally obligated to open a preliminary inquiry. I forced my hands flat on the desk to stop them from shaking. May I ask who filed the complaint? The submission was anonymous, though detailed. A pause. Extremely detailed. I swallowed hard. Only one person had reason and capability to fabricate something like that. Nova. The moment the call ended, I dialed my head of compliance, then legal counsel, then the firm's director. Every single one assured me the inquiry would likely be dismissed once the accusations were proven baseless. But the damage wasn't the inquiry, it was the stain. The shadow of impropriety is enough to destroy a career in financial management. Even a whisper can undo decades of trust. By the time I ended the last call, my chest felt tight enough to crack. At 5:17 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Liam. I answered immediately. Sweetheart. Mom, what did you do? His voice trembled. Nova just told me someone filed a complaint against you. Of course she had. Because she knew the second she threw a grenade into my professional life, she needed to get to Liam first, rewrite the story before I could. What exactly did she tell you? I asked, steadying my voice. That you're being investigated. That, he inhaled sharply, that you were using my name in your work. That I'm the reason you're in trouble. I closed my eyes. Fury surged like a tide. Liam, that is a lie. She said you blamed her, he said. That you're spiraling. That you're trying to ruin her reputation out of paranoia. Paranoia. Nova's favorite weapon. Listen to me, I said firmly. This complaint is fabricated. There is no evidence. Because none of it is true. Silence, then a soft, broken whisper. Why would someone do this to you? Because I am the obstacle standing between Nova and the final stage of her manipulation. But I couldn't say that. Not yet. I don't know, I said instead. But I'm handling it. He exhaled shakily. Mom, everything's falling apart. I don't know who to believe anymore. My throat tightened. Believe your heart, Liam, not your fear. A sound escaped him. Something between a sob and a breath. I need air. I'll call you later. He hung up. I sat there in the dim of my office, the sky outside turning the color of bruised steel, and understood something chilling. Nova wasn't just removing obstacles. She was dismantling me, piece by piece, until I posed no threat at all. And by the next morning, she proved exactly how far she was willing to go when she showed up at my home, uninvited, smiling as though nothing in the world was wrong. I was halfway through my morning coffee when the doorbell rang. Once softly, almost politely, too politely, the kind of knock someone uses when they want you calm before the storm hits. I set my mug down and approached the door cautiously. Through the frosted glass, I saw a silhouette. Slim, poised, utterly still. Nova. I felt my pulse spike. I opened a door, only a fraction. This isn't a good time. Oh, I think it's exactly the right time, she said pleasantly. May I come in? No. Her smile widened, as if I'd just validated something she already knew. She stepped back slightly, hands clasped neatly in front of her. Well, we can talk out here if you prefer. I won't take long. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, crossing my arms to keep them from shaking. What do you want, Nova? She exhaled, as if we were merely colleagues discussing a scheduling conflict. I came to clear the air. There was no air left to clear. Only smoke from a fire, she'd said herself. I didn't file the complaint, she said. I know you think I did, but I would never harm you intentionally. Lies. Smooth as silk. That's interesting, I replied, because the timing aligns remarkably with our conversation at the cafe. She tilted her head. Coincidence. No, I said. Strategy. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, not enough to break the mask, but enough to reveal the truth hiding underneath. You know, she said softly, Liam told me you were upset. I understand why. Change is difficult, and losing influence over an adult child can be emotionally destabilizing. Emotionally destabilizing. She was trying to provoke me into sounding irrational, so she could run back to Liam with another distorted version of reality. I'm not losing influence, I said calmly. I'm concerned. That concern, she replied, stepping closer, is going to destroy your relationship with him. I stiffened. Nova lowered her voice to a whisper. He trusts me now. A beat. And you're giving me every opportunity to deepen that trust. I felt a cold rush sweep down my spine. Nova, I said quietly, If you hurt my son? She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, Mara, I'm not going to hurt him. I'm going to elevate him, with your help or without it. Then her expression shifted, smooth, gentle, almost compassionate. Mothers like you, she said, always make the same mistake. I waited, heart thudding. You think you're protecting your child, when really, you're pushing them straight into my arms. My breath caught. They confide in me, she continued. Every fear, every frustration, every time you react, emotionally. The word dripped with condescension. He sees you as unstable, overprotective, threatened. I clenched my jaw. You coached him to think that. I didn't have to, she said simply. My fingers curled into my palms. You're isolating him. No, she corrected. You're isolating yourself. She took one last step toward me, close enough that I could see the faint shimmer of her eyeshadow, smell the subtle citrus note of her perfume. I came to tell you, she said softly, that this, whatever crusade you think you're on, won't end the way you want it to. And how do I want it to end? I asked. You want your son back, she whispered, but that won't happen unless you stop fighting me. I steadied my voice. I will never stop fighting for Leon. Her smile returned, serene and chilling. I was hoping you'd say that. I froze. Why? Because, she said lightly, turning to walk down my front steps. People are easiest to break when they're convinced they're unbreakable. She didn't look back, not once. I stood there, the cold morning wind sweeping around me, heart pounding against my ribs. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. Nova wasn't escalating out of panic. She was escalating because she was confident she was winning. But she wasn't the only one preparing moves, because an hour later, I received a message from an unexpected source, someone who claimed they had evidence that could finally expose Nova for who she truly was. I stayed on the porch long after Nova left, trying to steady my breathing, trying to restore some sense of control to a situation that had clearly spun far beyond the boundaries of normal conflict. Every instinct screamed that something catastrophic was coming, and soon. I wasn't wrong. Exactly 1 hour later, as I was settling into my living room with my laptop and an unsteady cup of tea, my phone dinged with a new message. Unknown number. No preview text. Against my better judgment, I opened it. You don't know me, but I know Nova. If you want proof of what she's capable of, meet me tonight. No police. 8 p.m., Pier 14. My pulse slammed in my chest. Another message followed immediately. Bring no one. Don't tell your son. Pier 14 was a quiet stretch of the waterfront, industrial, dimly lit, often empty at night. Not a place you meet strangers from unknown numbers. I read the messages 3 times, weighing possibilities. It could be a trap. It could be nothing. It could be everything. I texted back. Who are you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Someone who knows exactly how she ruins people. And someone who wants her stopped. My hand trembled around the phone. I called Tara. She answered on the first ring. Did you send me this? I asked, reading the text aloud. No, Tara said quickly. But don't go alone, Mara. This sounds dangerous. I can't involve police, not without losing the chance for something concrete. I need leverage, something undeniable. Mara, I'll be careful, she sighed shakily. Please, if anything feels wrong, leave immediately. I promised her I would. The sun had already set when I parked my car near Pier 14. The air was sharp, carrying the tang of sea salt and diesel. My breath fogged as I made my way across the cracked pavement, hands deep in my coat pockets. The pier stretched out into the water like the spine of some sleeping creature, dark, silent, waiting. I arrived at the designated spot, a metal bench near a rusted cargo container, and scanned the area. At first, I saw no one. Then a figure stepped out from behind the container. A man, mid-30s, dark hair falling across his forehead, shoulders hunched against the cold. His eyes darted nervously as he approached. Thank you for coming, he said softly. Who are you? I asked, every muscle rigid with caution. He glanced around before answering. My name is Jonah. The name meant nothing to me. He swallowed. I was involved with Nova years ago, before she changed her name. Ice spread through my veins. Jonah ran a shaking hand through his hair. I thought I could handle her. I thought I was smarter. But she knows how to dismantle people, from the inside out. What happened? I asked. She drained my accounts, isolated me from my family, told me she needed money for a lawsuit she was fighting, completely fabricated. By the time I realized I'd been conned, she'd vanished. His voice trembled. I know what she's doing to your son. I've seen it before. Twice. I held my breath. You said you had evidence. He nodded quickly, pulling a flash drive from his jacket. Everything I saved. Emails, voicemails, recordings, contracts she forged, financial transfers. He pressed it into my hand. She never thought I'd find the courage to collect it. I stared at the drive, heart pounding. Why come forward now? Because I heard she's targeting someone else again, he said. Targeting your son. His voice cracked with urgency. You need to use this before she destroys him. I slipped the drive into my coat. Thank you. Jonah backed away, glancing over his shoulder. Please be careful. When Nova realizes someone is onto her, she gets unpredictable. He turned and disappeared into the fog. I stood alone on the pier, gripping the flash drive like a lifeline. A weapon, proof, finally, something solid. But as I walked back toward my car, the hairs on the back of my neck lifted. Someone was watching me, and when I turned my headlights on, I saw a figure standing far down the pier, still, silent, unmistakable. Nova. Nova stood at the far edge of the pier, nothing but a silhouette framed by fog and the glow of distant ship lights. Still, silent, watching. For several long seconds, neither of us moved. The cold air bit at my cheeks, but the ice in my veins was far sharper. Had she followed me? Or had she been waiting for me all along? I forced myself to breathe slowly, not wanting her to see fear, because fear is fuel to people like Nova. I got into my car as calmly as I could, locked the doors, and started the engine. The headlights swept across the pier, catching her figure for the briefest moment before the fog swallowed her again. I didn't wait to see if she would move. I drove. My hands shook around the steering wheel the whole way home. When I reached my house, the feeling of being watched hadn't gone away. I checked the locks twice, then 3 times, before sinking into the chair in my study. The flash drive Jonah had given me sat on the desk like a living thing. Evidence, proof, finally, something tangible. I hesitated only a second before plugging it into my laptop. The folders were meticulously organized. Emails, documents, recordings. Jonah had clearly prepared for the day he might need this. I opened the first email, then the second, then the 10th. My chest tightened. Nova didn't just manipulate or pressure. She engineered financial traps, contracts disguised as collaborations, agreements framed as mutual investments, each one crafted to funnel money directly to her or her shell companies. There were messages where she promised Jonah she'd return the funds once the lawsuit clears, the same lie Tara had warned me about. Others showed her promising him a future together if he'd just trust her vision. And then the recordings. One by one, I played them. Her voice was unmistakable, soft, persuasive, utterly controlled. You're holding yourself back, Jonah. Let me handle things. Your family won't understand. They never do, but I do. Stop doubting. It insults me when you question my intentions. You're the only one who believes in me. Don't ruin that. The tone was identical to the one she used on Liam. Identical. As I listened, a sickening realization settled in my chest. Nova never changed her methods. She changed her targets. With every file I opened, I understood more clearly the architecture of her manipulation: isolation, dependence, financial entanglement, and finally, obliteration. I spent 2 hours combing through the evidence, compiling notes, cross-referencing dates. By the time I leaned back in my chair, I knew the truth with absolute certainty. If I didn't intervene soon, there wouldn't be anything left of my son to save. I closed my laptop, rubbing my temples. Then, my phone buzzed. Liam. My pulse leapt into my throat. I answered immediately. Liam, are you okay? He didn't speak at first. I heard only his unsteady breathing. Finally, he whispered, Mom, I don't know what to do. My heart cracked. What happened? He hesitated. Nova found out I said I needed space yesterday. She got upset. Really upset. How upset? She said she felt abandoned, that I was choosing you over her. She started crying. Then she locked herself in my bathroom and wouldn't come out for an hour. I closed my eyes. That was classic boundary punishment, an emotional hostage situation disguised as vulnerability. And now she's saying she might leave me, Liam continued, voice trembling. Mom, she says she'll walk away if I keep doubting her. And there it was, the quiet ultimatum designed to snap him back into submission. Liam, I said softly, you didn't do anything wrong. Please listen to me. I don't know who to trust anymore, he whispered. I just want everything to stop. My heart shattered. I'm here. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. You're not alone. He exhaled shakily. I'll call you tomorrow. I just need to think. The line went dead. I sat there, gripping my phone, every nerve buzzing with dread. Because while he was thinking, Nova was strategizing. And the very next morning, I received proof of exactly how far she was willing to go. Evidence that made every previous manipulation look like child's play. I barely slept. Every time I drifted off, I jolted awake again, hearing Liam's voice in my mind. I just want everything to stop. By dawn, I'd convinced myself that nothing Nova did could surprise me anymore. I was wrong. At 7:14 a.m., my inbox pinged with a new message. No subject line. No sender name. Just a string of numbers. My stomach tightened as I clicked it open. There were 2 attachments. The first was a PDF labeled, Statement, Witness, L. Armitage. My blood ran cold. I opened it. I stared, and felt my world tilt. It was a formal written statement, signed electronically with Liam's name, declaring that I had been emotionally unstable, had interfered with his personal life, and had made threatening remarks toward his fiancée. Threatening remarks against Nova. The statement claimed I had sent Liam alarming emails, urged him to cut ties with everyone, and displayed erratic behavior at work. My chest constricted. Every single accusation was a lie, a fabrication, a weapon, because Nova knew exactly how the world viewed protective mothers. Controlling, dramatic, irrational. She didn't need truth, just a believable stereotype. I forced my shaking fingers to open the second attachment, a video. As it loaded, I prayed, begged, that it wasn't what I thought. The screen flickered. There sat Liam, pale, tired, clothes rumpled, speaking into his phone camera. But something was wrong. His eyes, they were empty, fogged, like someone had wrung the life out of him. Mom, he said quietly, I think you need help. I'm scared by how you've been acting. You're trying to ruin my relationship. You're not well. I pressed a hand over my mouth. The video continued for another minute, Liam speaking in a monotone, reading something repeatedly, as if coached or corrected off-screen. And then the final line, I need space from you until you get better. The recording ended. I sat frozen, the air around me turning sharp and thin. Not because Liam believed those words. I knew he didn't. His voice trembled. His eyes pleaded silently for someone to rescue him from the script he was being forced to read. But because I understood exactly what Nova intended to do with the footage, she wasn't isolating him from me. She was building a legal argument for unstable parent behavior, for harassment, for endangerment. And when combined with the fabricated anonymous ethics complaint against my practice, it painted a picture, a false, chillingly coherent picture, one where I was the problem, one where I could be dismissed, invalidated, removed from Liam's life with a single court order. A soft knock sounded at my door. I nearly jumped out of my skin. When I opened it, my neighbor, an elderly woman named Margaret, who had lived across the street for 2 decades, stood wringing her hands. Mara, dear, are you all right? I nodded stiffly. Yes, why? She swallowed nervously. There was a woman here yesterday after you left. She was knocking on your door, looking in the windows. She asked me questions, personal questions. My veins turned to ice. What kind of questions? About your mental state, Margaret whispered. Whether you'd been acting erratically lately. Nova. She was building witnesses, building a case, building a future where I would be written off as an unhinged mother destroying her son's life. I steadied myself against the doorframe. Mara, Margaret added softly, do you need help? I'm worried. I forced a steady breath. I'm fine. Thank you, truly. But inside, panic clawed through me. Nova wasn't just isolating Liam emotionally. She was isolating me strategically, piece by piece, person by person, until there would be no one left to believe me. But before I could decide my next move, the flash drive Jonah gave me delivered one more revelation, one so explosive it turned the entire situation on its head and made me realize Nova wasn't acting alone. I returned to my study with a heaviness in my chest I'd never felt before, not even during my divorce, not even when I lost my mother. This was a different kind of grief, a living grief, a grief for someone still alive but slipping away before my eyes. I sat down, hands trembling, and reopened the folders on the flash drive Jonah had given me. I had combed through most of it the night before, but exhaustion must have dulled my attention, because one folder, one I hadn't noticed, blinked at me with a title that froze me, Correspondence NL plus JH. NL was obvious, November Larson, Nova's previous identity, but JH? My pulse quickened. I clicked the folder. Inside were a dozen audio clips and several PDFs. The clips were encrypted, but Jonah had left a password in an accompanying note. She trusted the wrong person once. Use it. With a deep breath, I began decrypting the first recording. A click. Static. Then two voices. Nova's and a man's. Calm, confident, deep. He's perfect, Nova said. Smart, ambitious, isolated enough to shape. He reminds me of... The recording crackled. Of Caleb, the man finished for her. I went cold. Caleb, Tara's brother. The man who didn't survive her. Nova laughed softly in the recording, a chilling sound I'd heard before. He was too emotional, too needy. Liam is different. He can be guided, manipulated, groomed. The man hummed thoughtfully. Make sure he signs early. Don't drag it out like last time. We can't afford another collapse. My heart hammered. She wasn't alone. She had a partner. And not just any partner. Someone who knew about Caleb. Someone who had been involved in whatever happened to him. I scrubbed through the file, desperate for context. Another clip. This time, the man's tone was colder. You're falling behind schedule. Nova bristled. He trusts me. These things take finesse. We need the signatures, Nova. The transfers. You promised you could handle him. I leaned forward, breath shallow. Transfers. Signatures. My mind raced. Liam's voice in the video, shaky and exhausted. Nova locking herself in his bathroom. The emotional traps. The pressure. My son wasn't just being manipulated emotionally. He was being prepared. Prepped for a financial extraction. The next clip confirmed it. Once his accounts are consolidated, you'll bring him to the consultant. He signs, and it's done. Nova replied, he's almost ready. He's pulling away from his mother. Once she's out of the picture, he'll rely solely on me. I felt nauseous. This wasn't a romantic scheme. It wasn't even pure fraud. It was a coordinated operation, a two-person system designed to break individuals, absorb their assets, and discard what remained. And Liam was next in line. I opened the PDFs next. They contained templates, actual templates, of the contracts Nova had used on Jonah and Caleb. Each one structured to strip the victim of savings while legally distancing both fraudsters from liability. They had done this before, many times. And then, at the bottom of the folder, I found something that made my blood run cold. A draft contract dated last week, with Liam's full name, his new apartment address, anticipated savings amount, and projected transfer dates. 3 days from now. 3 days. I bolted upright, heart slamming against my ribs. Nova wasn't moving slowly anymore. She was accelerating. Because she sensed I was closing in. Because she wanted to finish before I could stop her. And worst of all, at the bottom of the draft contract, under co-signatory, was the name of the mysterious man from the recordings. Julian Harker, a name I didn't recognize. But beneath it was something I did. His role. Financial proxy and executor. Executor. They weren't just planning a financial extraction. They were planning a takeover of Liam's accounts, his future, his autonomy, everything. But the moment I realized who Julian Harker actually was and how deeply he was already embedded in my son's life, I understood this wasn't just a race against Nova. It was a race against time. I didn't recognize the name Julian Harker when I first saw it, but I knew instantly and instinctively that it mattered. The way the folder labeled him, the role attached to his signature, financial proxy and executor. Executor of what? My stomach twisted. As soon as the panic settled enough for me to breathe, I did what any seasoned financial professional would do. I ran the name through every internal, public, and gray area database accessible to me, and when the results loaded, my breath caught. Julian Harker wasn't just some distant conspirator. He wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. He was already in my son's world, front and center. Julian Harker was the newly appointed senior advisor for Liam's startup, brought in through a consulting initiative Nova had encouraged him to apply to, a program she claimed would help Liam level up his career. My hands tensed around the mouse. Julian wasn't just involved. He had positioned himself beside Liam under the guise of mentorship. The deeper I read, the worse it became. Julian had a history, hidden beneath layers of dissolved corporations and offshore shells, of serving as the financial extractor for Nova's previous operations. He was the one who drafted the contracts, oversaw the transfers, ensured the victims couldn't reverse anything once they realized the truth. Nova manipulated. Julian executed. A perfect, devastating cycle. I stared at their pattern. Victim after victim. Always men in their late 20s or early 30s. Always gifted, always isolated, always gradually turned against their support systems. Just like Liam, I felt something inside me. Something sharp, something primal, ignite. Enough. I called Liam immediately. He didn't pick up. I texted. Call me. Urgent. I'm coming over. No response. I grabbed my coat, shoved the flash drive into my bag, and drove faster than I should have toward his apartment. Nova's car wasn't in the lot. Julian's wasn't either. Relief flickered, but only briefly. Liam answered after my fourth knock. His face was pale, exhausted, eyes rimmed red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Mom, he whispered. I don't know if now is. I need 10 minutes, I said, stepping inside before he could refuse. Sit, please. He hesitated, then sank into the couch, as though gravity had increased around him. I sat across from him and spoke gently. Sweetheart, listen to me carefully. I found something. Something about Nova. I paused. And about Julian. His brow furrowed. Julian? My advisor? He's not your advisor. I reached into my bag. He's her partner. Liam blinked slowly. Her what? Partner in fraud. Partner in manipulation. Partner in a long line of schemes designed to destroy people and drain their lives. He shook his head. No. Julian's helping me with my career. He has connections. He's preparing you, I whispered, to sign contracts that will give them access to everything you own. The color drained from his face. I opened my laptop, inserted the flash drive, and loaded the audio files. Listen. Nova's voice filled the room. He's perfect, smart, ambitious, isolated enough to shape. Liam flinched hard. Then Julian's voice followed. We need the signatures. Don't drag it out this time. Liam's breath hitched. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands over his mouth. No, he whispered. No, that can't be them. It is, I said softly. And there's more. I showed him the draft contract, his name, his projected savings, the transfer schedule. Liam stared at the screen as if it were a live grenade. Mom, his voice cracked. She said Julian believed in my potential. She said he saw something special in me. You seize opportunity, I said quietly, not potential. Liam's chest heaved. I told her things, private things. She said she loved me. My heart broke. I know, I said. That's how she works. He shook his head violently, tears streaking down his cheeks. I let her in. I let her in so easily. You wanted to be seen, I whispered. There's no shame in that. We sat in silence for a long moment, and then, slowly, shakily, Liam lifted his head. Mom, what do we do? My pulse quickened. We fight, I said, and we fight smart. I reached for his hand. Because they're coming for you, Liam. His fingers closed around mine. And now, I said, voice steady, unshakable. They'll have to go through both of us. But before we could even draft our plan, Liam's phone buzzed with a message from Nova. A message that made my son go white and whisper, "Mom, she knows." Liam stared at his phone as if it were a venomous thing. His hand shook, his breath stuttered. Then he passed it to me. One message. From Nova. "I know what your mother is doing. I know what she showed you. Come home, Liam, alone. We can fix this, together." No accusations, no panic, just a calculated summons, like a spider tugging a strand of web. Liam's face was drained of color. "Mom, she's scared. That's why she's—" "No," I said firmly. "She's not scared. She's adjusting. You saw the recordings. She always adjusts when a mark starts waking up." He swallowed hard. "So what do we do? If I don't respond, she'll escalate. If I do, she'll manipulate." I took a breath. "We need help. Real help." I called Tara first. She answered immediately. When I said, "We have recordings, names, contracts," her voice sharpened with purpose. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Then I contacted the one person at the Halifax Police Department I trusted implicitly, Detective Mina Rourke, a tenacious investigator who'd once handled a complex corporate fraud case involving several of my clients. "Mina," I said, "I need to report something, and I need you to move fast." She didn't ask me to slow down. She didn't question my credibility. She simply said, "Send me the files. I'm on my way." Within the hour, my living room transformed into a strategy hub. Tara sat across from Liam, holding his trembling hands as if anchoring him to the present. Detective Rourke reviewed the recordings through earbuds while taking notes furiously. I hovered behind them, watching Liam's world collapse and rebuild in real time. When Rourke finally removed the earbuds, her expression was grim. "This is bigger than a romance scam," she said. "This is organized, coercive fraud. Two perpetrators, coordinated, targeting vulnerable professionals. And now that we have names, we can act." Liam looked up. "Will they arrest them? If they're still in the city?" Rourke nodded. "Absolutely." As if summoned by the mention of his name, Liam's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a location ping. Nova had shared her live location with him. A condo downtown, one I recognized as the same address listed on Julian's dissolved consulting firm. She wasn't hiding. She was daring him to come. Rourke stood. "Don't respond. We'll go. We'll retrieve whatever evidence we can before they destroy it." Tara touched Liam's arm. "You're safe here. Stay with your mother." But Liam shook his head, tears streaming silently. "I want to help. I want this to end." I squeezed his hand. "You've done enough, sweetheart. Let us handle the rest." Rourke, 2 additional officers, and Tara left together. I watched them drive away, a storm of dread and fragile hope twisting in my chest. They returned 2 hours later. Rourke's face said everything before she opened her mouth. "They're gone," she said. "Left in a hurry. Place was half-packed, but they didn't clean well." My breath caught. "What did you find?" She held up a folder, a printed exit plan, with dates, targets, bank routes, flight details, Nova's aliases, Julian's secondary identity, a financial extraction schedule that included Liam's name. Liam sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "They were going to disappear today," Rourke continued. "Your confrontation forced them to accelerate, but that rush left us evidence. A lot of evidence." Tara nodded, satisfaction glittering beneath her exhaustion. "They'll be found. They always leave a trail when they panic." I placed a gentle hand on Liam's back. "You're safe now." He looked up at me, eyes red but clear. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." "You weren't supposed to," I whispered. "People like them build entire worlds where the truth can't breathe." He exhaled shakily. "What happens now?" "Now," Detective Rourke said, "we issue warrants, alert border services, and begin coordinated tracking. They won't get far." Liam nodded slowly. "And me?" "You heal," I said. "And you rebuild." He leaned into me, letting his head rest on my shoulder. "Will I ever feel normal again?" "Yes," I said softly. "Not tomorrow, not next week, but yes." Outside, sirens wailed distantly, a sound that for the first time in weeks felt protective. As the officers left, Rourke paused at the door. "One more thing," she said. "You saved your son's life today. Don't forget that." I nodded, tears finally slipping free. Because for the first time since Nova entered our world, the threat was no longer growing. It was breaking.